And as I like to call him, the mind behind the mayhem, the creator of Art the Clown, Damien, Leone, everybody!
What's up?
Hello, everybody.
I am gone. Remember who you are.
So we are definitely going to be taking some questions from you guys. But I kind of want to start out with, Damien, what in the hell went wrong? Like, what made all of this just kind of pop into your head? Like, I mean, it's basically, I look at it and I see like, Pennywise had sex with Gene Simmons as the demon, and Art was like the bastard love child that just really went wrong.
I like that. I blame it all on my mother for naming me after The Omen and introducing me to horror movies at 3 years old. And I've really been obsessed, fascinated since then. Discovered Tom Savini when I was 12 and became obsessed with makeup effects, and that led into my passion for filmmaking. And then, yeah, how art came to be was very interesting. I made my first short film when I got out of it. I took one film class, and then I was like, film school is not for me. I'm just going to take the money that I would have used and make my first short film. And I wanted to be my calling card as a filmmaker, and I was just going to put every trope, every possible horror thing that I loved in it, just so it would stand out in a showcase for my special effects, and just demons, witches, whatever, just like a nice, badass short film. And I always had this idea of a clown terrorizing a woman on a city bus in the middle of the night. I don't know where the idea came from, but I just thought it would be creepy. It really turned out to be, if you've seen All Hallows Eve, the first segment on the tape. That was basically the idea, just him toying with her, and it starts off awkward and uncomfortable, and it's kind of funny, you don't know where he's coming from, and then it just starts getting more and more intense and real and sadistic until it ends with him injecting her with a needle.
It's like all my dates.
So that was the idea, and then and when I showed people that short film, they were like, hey, the demons are cool, all that stuff, but man, that clown is insane. Like, he looks so cool, and we need to see more. You gotta do more. And then I said, all right, let's make a short film based solely on that clown. And that's when I turned him into a slasher. And basically, that's when he became what Art the Clown is. And it was pretty much a love letter to all the slashers that I grew up loving. If you see, there's a little bit of everybody in him. He sort of has the personality of Freddy, and he's sort of more gritty and sadistic, like maybe Leatherface, a little bit of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre gritty vibe, and silent killer like Jason and Michael Myers. So, yeah. And his look is, thanks to the Tim Curry Pennywise, I wanted to go as far away from him as possible because I didn't want to step on his toes at the time. He was the only real clown at the time. So, yeah.
Well, besides Gacy.
Right.
And Ronald McDonald. He's killed more people than anybody else. Heart disease.
Well, there was another killer clown that I don't know if anybody has seen, Nightwing Escalation, but your Joker. Yes. If you guys haven't seen him as the Joker, holy shit.
Yeah, he's my favorite villain of all time. So I'm always, even when I didn't do Nightwing, I've always liked learning his monologues and everything. They're just so much fun. I'm always playing around with them. I recently learned a new one from The Killing Joke. It's a madness monologue, so I've been having fun with that.
Let's hear it. You want to hear it?
Okay, hold on. Let me get in character.
Get your cameras ready.
Remember? Why wouldn't do that? Remembering's dangerous. I find the past to be a worrying, anxious place. The past tense, I suppose you'd call it. Oh, memories.
One moment you're lost in a carnival of delights filled with poignant childhood aromas, the flashing neon of puberty, all that sentimental candy floss. The next, it takes you somewhere you don't want to go. Somewhere dark and cold, filled with the damp, ambiguous shapes of things you'd hoped were forgotten. Memories can be vile, repulsive little brutes. Like children, I suppose. But can we live without them? After all, memory is what our reason is based upon. If we can't face them, then we deny reason itself. Although why not? We are contractually tied down to rationality. There is no sanity clause. So when you find yourself lost on an unpleasant train of thought where heading to the places in your past where the screaming is unbearable, remember, there's always madness. Madness is an emergency exit. You can just step outside and close the door on all the dreadful things that happened. You can lock them away forever. Well, that was fun. Who's for Chinese?
So as a fan of The Killing Joke, that being like pretty much one of my favorite Batman stories of all time.
Mine too.
I think I need a cigarette. I'll be back.
Cancer tastes delicious.
What attracted you to the Joker? I mean,
Oh my gosh. I first of all, I actually was terrified of him because I had the old Mego figures back in the late, I'm old. They were huge, and I had the Joker figure, and he scared the crap out of me. My mom had to hide him from me for a while. And then I started watching the old 60s show, you know, with Cesar Romero, and I fell in love with the guy. I was like, this is amazing. And then I started, you know, my dad grew up reading comic books, so he's like, I got to the age where I could actually read comic books, and he's like, he introduced me, of course, to the Batman comics and Spider-Man, all that as well, and I just glommed onto the character, because I always like characters that are, I love villains, but I especially love villains that have that playful, mischievous side, and that's Joker. And that's what, of course, drew me to art as well. I was like, oh my gosh, art is that mischievous type of Mr. Beanish, Jokerish type of character, and I'm like, I want to play this guy. So when the audition came up for art, I'm like, please put me in, coach. Put me in. I would love to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I'm lucky to be able to play him. But oddly enough, I got cast as Joker on Nightwing as well as art the same exact week. So I was like, this is a great week to be a killer clown.
was there anything that you, reading, that you saw that you're like, no, I can't, I really don't think I can.
Well, you know, because he sent me the script after I got cast, and I got to the hacksaw scene. And I'm reading this, and he's telling he wrote it down in graphic detail, and I thought that was just going to be for our benefit to know what he was intending to be, you know, perceived what is happening in the scene. I'm like, oh my god, just spilling out, he's taking his time, killing her and everything. And I asked him about it, and he's like, oh no, we're going to show all of that. And we're going to do it with practical effects. We're not going to do CG or anything like that. We're going to build a whole entire replica of Catherine. You're going to actually cut through it. And we're going to have the intestines spilling out. And, you know, I was like, oh, yeah! yes, let's do this. Because we're taking things to a new level with that. Because I feel like a lot of modern horror films have been shying away from the kills. And I saw this, I'm like, oh my god, we're finally gonna get back to basics. We're gonna because we're both horror fans ourselves, and we're like, this is what I think has been lacking so much recently. And we're like, let's give the people what they want, because we're making the type of the film we want to see. So we're like, yes, let's do it. We don't have a studio above us saying you can't do that. So I'm like, let's do it. Just wait till you see part 2.
Shameless plug on that, but I know that's
Shameless! How dare I?
I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure that everybody is just anxiously awaiting part 2, and I know that, when you kicked off the crowdfunding campaign, that was talking about the hacksaw scene, and you're like, yeah, wait till you see how we top this, and I know I'm just kind of, I'm scarily waiting to see how it's topped. I mean, as a guy, there are certain things that I hope doesn't happen to top it, but yeah. I thought I saw a question out here. Is that Jordan back there? Jordan, did you have your hand up? No. You didn't? Okay, you were just taking a picture. Okay. Guy in the yellow right here. I thought I saw a question.
Hi. So just out of curiosity, David, when it came to how you chose to display arts like mannerisms, because obviously your character is completely silent throughout the film, where did you get the ideas for those mannerisms and like just the wide smile, grin, like all of that? I would love to hear where you got those ideas from.
That's a good question. I got a lot of inspiration from so many different places. I mean, I would say the first inspiration, of course, was the wonderful Mike Gianelli, who was original art in All Hallows Eve and the short film Terrifier. I mean, Mike did a fantastic job originating the character, and he made my job so much easier because I didn't have to build a character from the ground up. So that was, of course, the biggest inspiration, because I wanted to stay as true to what he did with the character, but also add my own thing to it. Excuse me, I just had food. But I would say what I wanted to add more to the character was more the clowning aspect of him and the physical comedy and the expression, because I felt that was a good way to differentiate this silent character from the other silent characters that came before him, the silent killers and stuff like that. And what I loved was the makeup. It allows for the free expression of movement in my face, and you're not constrained with like a hockey mask or anything like that, And I was like, well, I looked at my love of great silent film actors. I had a great education in that growing up. I was watching Marx Brothers movies and Chaplin and Buster Keaton at an early age. My aunt probably gave me the best Christmas gift ever. Now when I think of it, was she gifted me a box set of the Mr. Bean videos when I would just sit there and watch them over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and I loved that style of acting, that comedy. It's just Roland is so good at expressing ideas and situations just with his face and his body, and I looked at that as a big source of inspiration. And I was also lucky enough. For 5 years, I toured with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the musical. I actually came here in 2013 with it, and playing Grandpa Who, but I was also the understudy for the Grinch, and our Grinch was the wonderfully talented Stefan Karl, who was Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town, who unfortunately passed away back in 2018 from cancer. And he actually had professional training in physical comedy and clowning and mime work, and so being his understudy for 5 years was a master class in physical comedy, and he was able to take me aside and fine-tune everything I had been, building upon my whole entire life. And I was fresh off of touring with Grinch when I started doing Terrifier, so that was fresh in my mind. So I would have a lot of moments on set. I was like, how would Stefan approach this scene? And I was like, oh, I know exactly what he would do here, his physicalities. And so, like, if you go back and watch what I do, and you watch some episodes of Lazy Town, or you watch some clips from Grinch, you might see a lot of Stefan in my representation of art. And of course, I also got a lot of inspiration from the great horror icons that came before me, especially Freddy Krueger. I mean, there's a lot of Freddy in art, there's a lot of Joker in art. And so, yeah, I just took a lot of what I saw that came before me. I learned from the greats and then adapted it for myself. And that's what I always encourage other actors to do, is learn from the best, and find ways to make it your own.
It's kind of funny to me that you mentioned Rowan Atkinson like that, because for the longest time, I was a huge Mr. Bean fan, and for the longest time, I had no idea that he could actually really speak.
Oh,
I had no idea that he had a voice. And then I see 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh yeah, people forget he was Zazu in Lion King.
Yeah, I mean, he is just, I mean, obviously I knew the guy could talk, but like,
Blackadder.
seeing him in 4 Weddings and a Funeral where he's a priest and everything, and he says just like the wrong things at the wrong time.
Oh, he's wonderful.
You go back to,
He has a great one-person show that he did too. He does all these different bits and monologues, and there's this one great one. He plays Satan welcoming people into hell. I used to do that. I can't really remember the whole monologue now, but I used to do that for auditions from time to time, and it was just so much fun. He's got such a great sense of humor, and he makes it look so simple, and that's what I love about him. I love it. I just love British comedians in general. So they're a different. Yeah, they have a darker sense of humor. It's very dark but very sophisticated, and that's what I love about British comedies.
as far as taking direction, how much did you actually have to give him, Damien, as far as, all right, go cut this bitch up now, like this?
Well, I always say I have a very clear vision of what I want Art to do at all times, even down to his facial expressions, like when he should smile, when he should put on that big smile, things like that. So, and then I'll do 2 or 3 takes my way, and then I'll let Dave play, and I'll say, if you have any other ideas, you want to do some crazy stuff, I just let him go off. A perfect example of that is in the pizzeria scene in Terrifier, when he's just making all those faces to the Tara character. So I had a few specific ones, and then there's just like a whole long take of me just going, all right, Dave, just go crazy and just start making faces. And he made the one like doing that one. No, this one like that. That's all Dave. My original vision for Art. There's probably a lot of good ones. I can only pick a few. I'm sure there's some great ones that I didn't get to use. But when it comes to like the really scary stuff and things like that, that's like typically I always know what I want him to do there. But like he said, he really brought that clown element. And the first time I ever really saw that was when after he gives her the ring and then he gets up and sort of skips away to the bathroom. Like that right there, that skip is all Dave. Like I would have had him like being a much more just cold killer. But once I saw him doing that kind of stuff, I said, he is a clown. Let's sort of inject a little more of this humor into it. But we try not to take it too far. The most important thing is to always keep it scary at the end of the day. I never want to go too far into the goofy elements. He has to be first and foremost sadistic, evil, and scary. It always has to be brought back to a serious nature.
And that's kind of a thing about you too that I've noticed is, anytime that I've seen you do like an in-costume photo op as Art, every person that comes up, you do something different with them. It's not just the same, we're gonna stand here, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. No, he makes just completely different photos with every person. And to me, that is just amazing, watching you with all of those folks and the way that you interact. And then, you'll have to jump in occasionally and maybe do some touch-ups on the makeup, things like that. It's just, you guys have everything down to such an artful machine that, I know. I'm allowed one. But yeah, like I love seeing you guys interact with fans. I think it's just fantastic the way that you do it and the way that you just, every little thing is for the fans. And the way that you said that about, you wanted to make a movie that fans would like to watch. I mean, you're bringing back classic gore that's not dumbed down for an MTV generation, the practical effects, and personally, just thank you for that, because it's about time. It's like I would have a question back here.
So, during the bicycle scene, David, you're a very tall person. How was it filming that? Because that's a small bike.
That was fun. At first we didn't even know if it was going to work, and now we're like, oh, please let me be able to do this, so I had to practice with the bicycle. I was so determined to make it work, because not only am I tall, I have those big, huge waffle stomping feet shoes, on, and I was like, and those tiny little pedals. I'm like, I gotta make this work somehow, because I wanted this to work, because I thought that was such a funny concept. That here he is in the middle of chasing his victim down. He had just worn someone's skin on his body, and this girl's already freaked out enough, and he just decides, ooh, a bicycle. I got this bitch locked up in here anyway. I'm gonna have a little fun. Whee! It's just, I love that. And I think we're maybe on day 4 of filming all these days consecutively, so we're all a little bit punch drunk giddy at that time. And so we were just constantly cracking up during the whole entire thing, because I was falling constantly, crashing into things, like the crash you see and There's a Real Crash. It was a fun night, and we would have those nights where it was just like, let's get a little silly.
That was the hardest I laughed during that entire shoot. That was the most fun I had in that moment. It was 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I just kept the camera rolling. Forgot we were filming a movie for a minute. I was just watching him ride around in circles, and he was singing, because he could talk and make noises and stuff. And obviously I'm going to cut it out, but he was singing Queen, as
Bicycle race.
Yeah. And he keeps crashing.
I was doing with a Herman Pervert's voice. He was like,
I want to ride my bicycle. You old fat ass over here, Victoria, I'm gonna cut you off. Don't wear someone's face. Yeah. Call me. Jesus Christ.
no, he's in the other room.
Oh, yeah. I found Jesus.
Yeah. I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for it. Right over here.
How you doing, guys? I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't try to pry some Terrifier 2 information out of you.
Sinner.
Oh, yeah. Just wondering, we know Art is now achieved supernatural status going into this new one. Can you share any kind of abilities or maybe new powers, harder to kill, teleportation, anything you can give us on that?
He's definitely harder to kill. He's virtually.
He's gold.
Virtually immortal in this one. But this one, whereas the first one was really a showcase for Art as a villain, now you know he's supernatural. This one's really about the light and the dark. So we're really building up the heroine in this movie as well. And now it's when you have this supernatural, seemingly immortal character, how do you fight that? What is appointed to stop that? And that's really where our hero comes in this one. It's just as much, if not more, about her than it is Art, even though Art is in this film more than he is in the first one. He's in this entire film. But, so it's interesting. It's a lot. All the elements that you guys seem to love about the original, we made sure we kept in this one. But the scope of it is so much bigger, and there's a huge fantasy element because of the supernatural things going on, and it feels like a different film. I'm excited for you guys to see, because like I said, it still has those gritty slasher elements that we cannot lose, obviously, but it's very different in tone.
So we're gonna get maybe some backstory on Art as well?
You might get some little nuggets.
What do we have over here? Ooh, it's the lady.
Lady.
This is for David. What is your favorite scene?
In the first one, I'm guessing? My favorite scene would be the pizzeria scene. I just love that scene so much. That's the thing I loved about it. It's you don't have to have all this exposition about who Art is or anything like that. You have that one scene and you know everything you need to know about the character. You see his playful, clownish side, but you also see his creepy, vicious, malicious side later on, and it sets him up so well. And I loved it because that was the first time I really got to play around with the character a lot and just have fun with my actresses and actors and stuff like that. And like Catherine especially would just play around with me a lot too. Like the whole thing with her doing the hat and the boop in my nose, that was all her. And I was like, especially when she did the boop on the nose, like, okay, we got to bring that back. And so like when I killed her later on, I boop her nose. And I was so happy she did that. I was like, ooh, you gave me an idea. Like, oh. So I had fun. Plus, we got to be inside for once that was heated, and we had running water and everything like that.
And free pizza.
Free pizza, a lot of pizza. We actually made some of the poo on the wall from the pizza dough, so it was like, we kind of MacGyvered that. So it was a fun scene. And we've actually made some scenes in part 2 that kind of reference that scene in some ways. It has that kind of feel to it, and and this time, because when he wrote part 1, he didn't know me. He didn't know how I am. I like to play around with things. So when he wrote part 2, he just kind of wrote some things in the script, like a bare bones, like, okay, this is the setup, and he says art plays, and he's like, we're just going to figure that out when we get on set and see what's around. And there's this one scene especially where there was so much stuff for me to play around with, and we have some of it in the film, of course, but I mean, there's probably so many outtakes of other things I'll just play around with, and that was just pure joy for me. I was like, this is great. I love it. I love having those moments where I can just play around and just futz around with things. So it's a fun exercise for actors to be able to do that. That's what's great about Damien. He's one of these directors that's very, very, very actor friendly, and he's willing to hear new ideas from both actors and crew members. Even it's like, because we all look at this as a team effort. We all want this movie to be as great as it can. So we're open to other ideas and stuff like. We just say, hey, we'll try it out, see if it works. If not, oh well, we tried. Sometimes you get happy accidents that happen that even make a scene better than what we originally intended. So it's great having a director that is like that, because I've worked with some directors that micromanage every little movement in your head and face and stuff like that, and that can be annoying at times, because you want to have that freedom to experiment and see what you can come up with. So yeah, that's why I like that thing.
Jordan, you had something back there for us?
Now, this is actually more of a fond memory question for you, because honestly, it was kind of more heartwarming and kind of put a smile on my face when you actually mentioned Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. My question to you was, were you actually aware of like a lot of the donations and all the videos that were made in support of Robbie Rotten back in 2015, 16, I think it was? And did you actually watch a lot of the Weird #1 parody videos at all?
Oh yeah. I was so happy to see how the community was coming out in support of Stefan with his battle for cancer. That was, I talked to him a lot during this whole battle with it, and it meant a lot for him. We did a showing of Terrifier in New Jersey, and that's when I knew it was getting really bad for him. Had the audience, there were a lot of fans in the audience, so I had the whole audience, wishing well and stuff like that. So he sends me a message back, he's just crying, he's like, oh my God, thank you. It's like, it meant a lot to him. It meant a lot to him because he loved his fans. He was, very, very dedicated man. He was a huge family man too. And it's like he would bring his family with him on tour, and his kids were just as funny as he was. And he was a great father, and I feel like it was a loss to the world that we lost him so soon, because he was just starting to really break out, and people were starting to really pay attention to him, and then we lost him. It's like, he was a gift to the world. He's such a kind man. He did a lot of work for bullying. He had a charity for bullying, and because he was bullied a lot, that's what I was too. So he was a good man. So I miss him. I miss him a lot.
I thought it was just very heartwarming, like all the support they had for him back then. It was just really nice to see.
Hi. My question is, with Art being such an intense character, was it really hard to kind of turn that off when you weren't filming?
No. No, I'm not one of those actors. I don't have to stay in character the whole entire time, and I think my co-stars are very appreciative of that. No, I think that comes more because I was a stage actor for so long, and there were some shows I did where I had to play multiple characters, and I would sometimes even have to argue with myself on stage. So I had to learn how to just switch in and out of characters very easily, and that's how I am. I can just, as soon as I understand the character, I know where he lives in my brain, and I can just bring him out when I have to and put him away when I'm done. And so it's probably a little bit weird for people to see me on set because right before we start rolling, I'm sitting around just joking around, doing silly voices and everything like that. And they're like, okay, Dave, rolling. And I think they just wanted to get me to shut up. And then I put on the angry eyes, step, 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 cut, and they'll be like, oh, are you okay? I didn't hurt you or anything. I'm fine, okay. It's gotta be a little bit disarming for them, especially when I covered with blood and everything, but I still have my moments on set. I especially like to play around with Lauren Lavera, who's Sienna in part 2. She has a little bit of a fear of clowns. And so I had, especially the first night I was on set with her and Kaylee, one of our other actresses, and then I wanted to welcome them to the set. So they're in the dressing room one day, and I'm in full costume and makeup, and I'm just staring through the window at them. And they're just sitting there talking and talking. They just turn around and see me and they're like, I'm like, Arkham the Terrifier! And I'd still just sometimes sneak up behind Lauren and just stand behind her, and she'd just turn around and, I was risking my life though, because she is trained in different forms of martial arts, so she could have totally kicked my ass, and I was very lucky I didn't get punched in the face.
I think just the image of art scares the hell out of me. My niece is terrified of clowns, so I got her the steelbook for Christmas, and that was a great gift for her to open. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I am not a nice person.
I don't know if this is kind of weird to think about, but one of my favorite things about the Terrifier is how similar it is in like just like the shock factor and the gore of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and how it's just like really just like immediately and like unexpectedly brutal in so many scenes. But it got me thinking, like, another similarity is like, what do you think they're doing when they're getting ready? You know what I mean? Like, what is going, like, because they obviously look like normal people before they put on Leatherface and before they put on like the gloves and all the nonsense. So it's like, I've always like wondered like what is going on in the character's head, like during the brushing the teeth, getting ready to go kill people phase, you know, because they're just obviously batshit once they get there. But like before then, what do you think?
I think he's always batshit.
Yeah, I imagine he's just singing songs in his head. Brush it, brush it, brush it, brush it. But you know he doesn't brush his teeth. What am I talking about? Look at those things. And like gingivitis is a silent killer, just like
So, Damien, this one's for you. After art is kind of laid to rest and Terrifiers, I know I had heard one time that you were thinking about maybe like a trilogy. You wanted to do 3. So after that, what would you like to do? I mean, like maybe a Brady Bunch sequel or something?
About that, no. My favorite subgenre is zombies, and I love the original Romero trilogy. And my dream project is to make an epic zombie film that would be in his world, really. And I feel like that, for me, for my personal taste, I feel like the zombie genre hasn't really been able to capture that same feel of the original Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. You know, Walking Dead has touched upon, has had like some really cool moments, obviously, and things like that. But I feel like, hopefully, what I did with the Killer Clown, when you'd be like, oh great, another Killer Clown, like that's just so generic and played out at this point. But then you see it and it's a kind of fresh spin on it. I feel like I can do that, and there's things I haven't seen in the zombie genre yet that would be really fresh and cool and scary. I feel like zombies aren't as scary anymore as they could be. And they focus too much on the humans, even though that is, you know, when you have great human characters, that's the most important element. But you can't forget to keep the zombies scary, and it always has to come back to the zombies. That's why we're really there in the first place. It's the zombies. So.
But I mean, think about even like Return of the Living Dead, you know, it's focused on this great human cast, but
It's one of my favorites, by the way.
such a great movie, but to me the most iconic part of the movie is where he gets on the radio and he's like,
Send
more
more
cops.
cops, yeah. Send more paramedics, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, look how fresh that was at the time. People forget, they think of fast-moving zombies, they'll be like, oh, like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead or something like that. Like, they were running in Return of the Living Dead. Like, that was the birth of the fast-moving zombie, the talking zombie, brains, like, so many things in that are just...
yeah, I mean, like you said, we want the character, we want to focus on the humans too, but there was a movie that I saw years ago, Are Zombies or something like that, where they didn't realize that they were zombies. And so it was like focused from their eyes, how they're watching the zombie apocalypse kind of around them, but they don't realize that they're the zombies. So it was kind of cool, kind of different. No, not Warm Bodies, that was a zombie love story, which...
You're right with the name.
Was it Arg Zombies? Yeah. Really cool movie, check that one out. Right down here.
After the, success of Terrifier fans, or possibly coming into part 2, were you a little nervous and excited for a sequel? Like, how were you feeling for part 2?
Oh yeah, like we can't fuck this up. Yeah, I mean, you can't imagine how grateful we are and how surreal this entire experience is. Like, this doesn't sink in, it's very wild when people come up to us and they say, oh, you're scarier than Pennywise, or you have the greatest slasher since the 80s. And like that's insane. It means the world, and it's a huge deal. So going into part 2, that's one of the reasons why it's taken so long. This is such an epic movie for us, for our level. We're not Hollywood, we don't have a studio. This was the most money we've ever had at this point, but it's still an ultra low budget movie at the end of the day compared to what you see on in Hollywood. So we just wanted to put as many amazing things in it as possible, things that are just really going to stand out, especially kill scenes. Not just one crazy kill scene, it's a ton. The whole movie is just a giant roller coaster of mayhem and twists and turns and these so many crazy things that you don't know are coming in this movie. That no spoilers were leaked.
When's it coming out?
No later than Halloween.
All right.
You that.
Could we get Tom's Wolverine though?
Nice.
All right, so I know creatively as a director you made a decision to not have him talk, and that's impactful, so we get that. But let's say that for whatever reason, the studio or whatever made you say that he has to say at least, or just one word. So just to go with what we've already seen in the Terrifier, and this is a question for both of you guys because you might have different answers. If you had to pick one scene where Art says one word, what scene would it be and what would you have said it, and maybe even a why?
It's a great question. It is. I don't have an answer. I could just never. I'd never want to have him speak. Ever. I think that would just ruin everything. The whole mystique about this character, I think, would be gone. It's like, I never want to hear Jason speak or Michael Myers. But I'm sure you have.
I mean, you would think it'd be poop. That's one of my favorite words in the world is poop. It's got great alliteration and it's, palindrome. So it's fun. But I think it would be really funny if you just said onomatopoeia. And just like, because it has P in it, of course, but also it's onomatopoeia is just kind of ironic because it's like, if you know what onomatopoeia is. Right. It's smart.
I feel like the closest you ever came to like the characters speaking in the movie is when you give Samantha, Victoria, the finger when she's running away after she slams you in the foot with the spike. I mean, that's clearly like a fuck you right there.
Yeah.
And that wasn't scripted, so that wasn't even in the scene because She runs away. I forgot. I don't even know. You were just supposed to like look angry or something like
Yeah.
that. And the camera was still rolling. I yelled "cut," but the camera was still rolling, and Samantha came walking back over to Dave, and he just gave her the finger, and everybody laughed, and we didn't think about it.
Hey, we can make the crew laugh, you know you've done something right.
So months later, when I'm editing it, and I'm looking at that footage, I see him give the finger, and I hear everybody laughing, and I'm like, oh, if they laughed then, I'm like, maybe the audience will laugh, because this is something I would never write for him to do. It's like so obvious and on the nose, and I'll have him give him the finger.
A little bit contrived.
I was like, again, it's like injecting those little bits of personality and making him a little more human, which I think really resonates with people. So those little bits of humanity. So people ask, well, if I have like a fascination with like shit or bodily fluids, like what's with him and shit all over the place? And it's like doing things that you would never ever see another slasher do. Or if you're sick, you think about it. It's like, does this character go to the bathroom? What does he do? Like on his off time? Does Michael Myers have to go and take a shit at some point? And I'm like, it's just never addressed. Do they eat? Things like that. And I'm like, I'm gonna have my character do those things.
I didn't
he
have
does
corn.
he does take a shit. And he's disgusting and sadistic, so we'll use that in a way to gross you back.
He's a sharkist.
Now that I can't get Shark the Clown out of my head.
This is an illegitimate child. We've gone off the rails.
Damien, I'm curious. So the alien dude in All Hallows Eve, is there any lore behind him? I need to know.
It's Ross Perot.
No, I think the greatest thing, that's the most ridiculous thing ever, obviously. Oh my God. That was a last minute, it wasn't supposed to be a guy in a suit. It was supposed to be a puppet, and this really creepy thing that never worked, and then we were like, oh, we just gotta throw a guy in a suit. It's so terrible. But we didn't have any money, and we just had to make something quick to make All Hallows Eve a feature.
Had to know.
You know what would have been great? The only way to salvage that short would have been if the alien drags the woman out, right? And then you cut to like a van door opening and she gets thrown into a van and then he pulls it off and it's just a guy the whole time. Would have been
It's Chris Farley.
Would have been amazing.
Go on down to the room, yeah.
Lordy freaking die!
Yes.
Okay, I got the question. I don't need a microphone. You played the clown. Did you always want to play the part of the clown? And were you the class clown in school?
I love playing like comedic characters. I always did comedy, so yeah, clowns was been my thing. But oddly enough, most of my school dates I was very quiet and reserved because I got bullied a lot, especially in middle school. And it was basically my senior year of high school. I had an awesome economics teacher, and he had the same kind of sense of humor I had. And he and I would just trade jokes back and forth during class, and everybody's like, where has this side of you been? But I always did that on stage, and that's what actually drew me into doing comedy, that's when I was in middle school. Like I said, I was bullied relentlessly. Unfortunately, I'll admit this, I attempted suicide that year because it was horrible. And it was theater that saved me. My mom encouraged me to get into theater, and that year my school was doing a production of Mickey's Christmas Carol, and my mom's like, you do a great Mickey Mouse impersonation. Why don't you audition for Mickey in Dom Cratchit? And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I did. Got the role, we're up there on the stage, and things started to go wrong. Like the set fell down on Scrooge and I, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Scrooge, I think we have rats! Stuff like that. And, but the best one was like, we were having the Cratchit family dinner scene where I got this little tiny little chicken. I'm like, this is our whole food tonight, folks. And the table breaks and flings the chicken over the audience. It goes flying. And oh well, we're having fast food tonight. And I just started making all these jokes, and I had the whole audience just laughing. And it was the first time in my life I had people laughing with me instead of at me at that school. And I was in control, and I had the power, and I was bringing joy to people. It's like, I I love this feeling. And I'm like, and I went home, I'm like, Mom, I want to do this more. And so she encouraged me to start getting into, doing a community theater, and that's really helped open me up a lot. And I thank her for that, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. So, yeah.
Oh, so glad you got into it.
One thing that I can definitely take away from that is having the support of your family, your friends, your teachers. That is just, that will put you light years ahead of the rest of the people. That, if you're getting bullied, if you're something like that's going on in your life, or if you know somebody that's got something like that going on in their life, give them the support that they need. I mean, come on, let's back each other up, people, on this, because we can't have that kind of thing happen. And same thing with me. When I was encouraged to get into a production of Little Shop of Horrors when I was like in 7th grade, that helped me too. So anyway, it was huge for me because I wasn't actually on stage. I was the voice of Audrey too, so I was off stage.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I got to have a lot of fun with that. But see, and that's what we should have done, a karaoke of
Oh my
Phoebe.
God,
We could have done that.
Yes.
Damien's sitting over there like, oh, these assholes, what they're singing and everything. Hey, I tried to get you with Kiss, man.
I was ready on Friday. My partner couldn't do it. She didn't have enough beer.
This guy with Queen just absolutely killed it Friday night. I gotta tell you guys, if you can get a chance.
Yeah, I did a little Queen.
Friday night he did Queen, he killed it. Right over here, right over here. Is that your natural hair color?
It's pinky. Yes, pinky.
Alright, I was wondering if it was ever like exhausting to get in and out of makeup every time, because I know from like personal experience, a lot of heavy makeup give you like skin problems. So like, did it ever like affect you badly?
Yeah, starting out, because like the first one, like especially it took us a lot longer to get into makeup because we would basically put on all the makeup. He would put the mask, it's one big huge prosthetic that's glued to my face, and then he would paint all the white on top of it. Now we started pre-painting the mask, and that's taken a lot of time off of it and stuff like that. But we recently, I guess you could probably take this, you're better talking, this is your area of expertise, but the mask and stuff like that, that's the type of mask we use.
Yeah, so originally we'd use gelatin on him, which isn't ideal, especially with all his facial expressions. So if you sweat or if you're drooling, it starts falling apart almost instantly. So all day long, and he has to wear it for sometimes 15 hours. So constantly have to, in between takes, touch it up, or have to bring it back to triage, as we say. And I have to patch him up, so it's a pain. But now I've started using foam latex, which is classic old school material. The problem why I couldn't use that, because you need a special oven to bake it in, because it's toxic fumes and things like that. But I can finally start using that, and that holds up well. We've been using those in all the photo ops, so that he can go make the wildest, craziest expressions, and it doesn't fall apart. But yeah, it's exhausting for me to put him in that makeup 3 hours a day before a 15-hour day of shooting, and then another 2 hours that I have to take it off of his face, and then I have to wake up in 4 hours and do it all over again.
It's probably rougher for him than it is for me.
He gets to sleep in the chair.
That did happen one time. I wake up and I'm like, oh, you've been out for like 4 hours. I'm like, what? We're ready to film. We're still finding new things to do with it. Like just yesterday we used a new remover and I was like, oh, this is nice. My skin's like a baby's butt today. That's great.
Only took us 3 movies to figure this out.
Yeah, as you do.
Cannibal Corpse right down here.
Can you give us any idea on how much more of a kill count there will be in Terrifier 2 versus the 1?
A lot more. A lot. Yeah. It's in the double digits for sure. Yeah. Maybe like, I don't know, 20? Something crazy. Yeah.
There's one scene especially.
Yeah, I mean, there's one scene where it takes out a lot of people.
Yeah, we used a lot of our Indiegogo backers for that. That was actually probably my favorite week on on set. It's a huge set piece, and we did it literally the week before we shut down for COVID in New York, and it was a scene that we were all stressing about doing because there's so many technical elements involved in stunt work, all this kind of stuff going on in it, and it was the most seamless week we had on set, and I think it was part of just having the fans there with us that added this new energy to everything, and we had a blast doing it, and it was so cool having the Indiegogo backers and the fans be part of the kill scenes and seeing their joy in doing that. We actually had to tell a few of them, you can't smile, you're getting killed. It was so much fun, it was so much fun. And then the world went crazy.
So we've got time for 2 more questions. Little girl right here has had her hand up for a while, and then we'll end with you right there in the yellow.
Do you ever bring your character home with you? Like in your normal life, and just act like
Oh yeah, I sometimes do, yeah. My roommates probably get annoyed by me at times. I like to scare people. So I don't do it to my male roommate because he's a bouncer and he can basically throw me through a wall. And he knows it, so he likes to scare me because he knows I won't retaliate. But my female roommate, I like to jump out and hide in her. I'll sometimes just, because I have some on my mask, like the trick-or-treat studio mask and all that kind of stuff, moral mask, and I'll sometimes just be waiting for her to come home from work, and I'll have the lights out or something like that, and I'll just be standing in the corner or behind the door, so when she goes to close the door, I'm just like, oh, Jesus. She gets out of the shower, oh, Jesus. It's fun for me, so yeah. I bring him, you know, he's part of me now, so yeah.
Hi, so this question is for Damien, actually. So one of the things that I love about the Terrifier physical release, the Blu-ray, is all of the extras on it, and it just makes me so excited to see the Terrifier 2 Blu-ray, which is where the Indiegogo comes in. I unfortunately missed out on being able to back up on that. Is there going to be a wider physical release for that when it comes out?
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure. And the cool thing is again, Terrifier 1, solo budget, and we weren't paying attention to behind the scenes things. We were just desperately trying to make the movie and get through that. So there's very little behind the scenes photos and video, unfortunately. But for 2 now, especially since everybody's got a phone with HD, there's so much footage, so much behind the scenes stuff. So we could probably make a whole documentary on the making of part 2. And another thing that I just did that I'm going to put on the Blu-ray is I had to show my mother a cut of this movie. I was just dying to see what she thought about it. Because like I said, she introduced me to horror, and on some level I'm always trying to please her with something. You know, I want her to be proud of me. So, and she just had major heart surgery. She's 70 years old. She's literally still recovering. This was like 3 months ago. So, I bring my computer over to her apartment, I set it up, and she has no idea that I'm behind her on the couch. I'm like, you just watch it up here. Her and my aunt watched it, and I'm in the back watching on the couch, and she doesn't know I'm filming all her reactions. And they are the most insane, genuine, I mean, just cursing up a storm, cursing me out. Like, Jesus Christ, Dave, what is wrong with you? Nobody's ever gonna watch this. What happened to you? Like, this is the whole time. And it was wild. Like, I actually felt bad, because at the end of I don't think she had a good time watching it, because of how horrible it was. And she's like, you lost me. She's like, at some point, you know, she's like, I'm proud of you, I admire it, the story, acting, everything looks so much better and great. She's like, but no one's gonna like this, no one's gonna watch it. I'm just thinking, you guys are like, yeah. But yeah, so that's definitely going on the Blu-ray. I got all her reactions. She had no idea I was filming her.
There is a scene in particular, I'm sure that's why she was going, what is wrong with you? And it's a scene I can't wait for you to see. It's basically the equivalent of the hacksaw scene, but on steroids. And it's a weird thing, like COVID actually kind of helped us with this because it gave us more time to really do what we want to do. And this man over here made one of the most impressive prosthetic pieces I've seen. And I walked in the room and saw this monstrosity, and I was like, holy crap. And it took us about a week to film the scene because there's so many technical elements involved in it. And I have to say, our actor, actress, whatever you want to call call this person because I don't want to spoil anything. But this person went above and beyond, because this was 5-6 days of filming and having to be on that high energy level of going through horrible, horrible things happening to them. And boy, you have no idea. You're gonna hate Art after this scene. Like, you are up, dude. You need therapy.
Well, that's one of our things that sort of hopefully separates us in terms of our kill scenes and things like that. Is especially in your typical old school slashers, there's a lot of build up to the kill, a lot of suspense, and then you see the knife go up and come down, or it's like a real quick kill. Kill's over like instantaneously, and that's how you get a lot of kills in these movies. That's how you can kill like 16 people, because they just come and go. Like, our gimmick, or whatever you want to call it, is one, like, every kill scene is an event, and it just doesn't end. And this one scene in particular goes on and on and on, that it's just relentless. And I'm sure if this ever had to go up against ratings boards or anything like that, we would get slapped with an NC-17 and X like something. So instantly, it's brutal. So I'm very curious to see what we have to face when it comes down to that, because I refuse to cut it. I'll never cut anything out of it. You're gonna see what. All right, folks, you heard that here first. Are you guys excited for Terrifier 2? Yeah!